She never expected a stranger's words to shatter her walls. As the ocean waves crashed against the shore, Olivia stood frozen, the truth of what this single father had just said echoing in her mind. Sometimes the most profound connections happen when we're running away from ourselves. This is a story about second chances, unexpected wisdom, and how a chance meeting on a windswept beach changed everything. If you've ever felt lost or wondered if life has more in store for you, this story might just be the sign you've been waiting for. Hit that like button if you've ever had a moment that changed your path, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Olivia Matthews had perfected the art of running away. At 34, she had a resume filled with impressive but short-lived positions across 3 continents, a string of relationships that never quite reached the 1-year mark, and a carefully cultivated persona that suggested she preferred it that way. Freedom, she called it. Her friends had other words for it. This morning, she stood at the edge of the Pacific Ocean, watching the early light dance across the water. The beach was nearly empty at this hour, just how she liked it. 3 months ago, she had accepted a marketing director position in this small coastal town, telling herself it was the perfect stepping stone to something bigger in San Francisco or Los Angeles. Already, she felt the familiar itch of restlessness. The wind whipped her dark hair across her face as she kicked off her sandals and walked toward the water. This had become her morning ritual, coffee in hand, toes in the sand, mind already plotting her next escape. The job was fine. The town was charming. Her apartment overlooked the harbor. And yet... Daddy, look! I found a purple one. The high-pitched voice broke through her thoughts. About 50 yards down the beach, a little girl with wild blonde curls was running toward a man who sat on a weathered beach blanket. He was hunched over what appeared to be a notebook, but looked up at the child's approach. "That's a sea urchin shell, Maddie. Great find." His voice carried on the wind, warm and patient. Olivia found herself watching them, this father-daughter duo who seemed to be as much a part of the beach as the driftwood and seagulls. The girl couldn't be more than 6 or 7, all gangly limbs and boundless energy. The father appeared to be in his late 30s, with sandy brown hair and the weathered look of someone who spent a lot of time outdoors. She hadn't meant to stare, but something about them held her attention. Perhaps it was the easy way they interacted, or the fact that they seemed so content in this moment, collecting shells at dawn while the rest of the world was still hitting the snooze button. The little girl spotted her watching and waved enthusiastically. Caught, Olivia awkwardly raised her coffee cup in greeting. To her dismay, the child took this as an invitation and began bounding toward her, clutching her purple treasure. "Do you like shells too?" the girl asked, skidding to a stop and holding up her find. "I'm making a collection. Daddy says we can make a wind chime with the best ones." "It's beautiful," Olivia said, genuinely impressed by the perfect spiral shell with its unusual purple hue. "That's quite a rare find." "I know. I've been looking for a purple one forever. I'm Maddie, by the way. I'm 7 3/4. Nice to meet you, Maddie. I'm Olivia." "Maddie, don't bother the lady," called the father, who was now walking toward them with an apologetic smile. Up close, Olivia noticed his eyes were a startling shade of green, crinkled at the corners from sun and laughter. "She's not bothering me," Olivia said quickly. "She was just showing me her impressive shell collection." "Dad, can Olivia help us look for shells? She has good eyes. She spotted my purple one from way over there." The man laughed, a rich sound that seemed to blend with the rhythm of the waves. "I think Olivia probably has her own morning plans, sweetheart." Actually, Olivia heard herself say, "I don't have anywhere to be for a while." The word surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. "Well, in that case, I'm Ethan. Ethan Riley. And we'd be happy to have you join our treasure hunt." That was how Olivia found herself spending the next hour combing the shoreline with Maddie and Ethan, searching for shells and sea glass. Maddie chattered endlessly, filling Olivia in on the importance of their collection, her second-grade class, and her opinion on why octopuses should be considered the smartest animals in the ocean. Ethan was quieter, but his occasional comments revealed a sharp wit and an impressive knowledge of marine biology. When Olivia asked about this, he shrugged modestly. I teach environmental science at the community college. The ocean is kind of my thing. Daddy knows everything about the ocean, Maddie declared proudly. He's writing a book about it too. It's more of a field guide, Ethan clarified, looking slightly embarrassed. Something local students can use when they're exploring the tide pools. As the morning progressed, Olivia found herself relaxing in their company. There was something refreshingly uncomplicated about shell hunting with this father and daughter. No networking, no strategic career moves, no carefully crafted persona, just the simple pleasure of finding tiny treasures in the sand. When Maddie ran ahead to investigate a promising cluster of rocks, Ethan turned to Olivia. So, are you visiting or do you live around here? I moved here about 3 months ago for work, she replied, bending to pick up a piece of blue sea glass. I'm the new marketing director at Coastal Innovations. Ah, the tech startup by the harbor. Impressive. Are you enjoying it? Olivia hesitated, unused to such a direct question. It's challenging in a good way. The company has potential. Ethan studied her for a moment, his green eyes thoughtful. But you're not planning to stay long, are you? The question caught her off guard. What makes you say that? He smiled, not unkindly. Just a feeling. You have that look about you, like you're already halfway out the door. Olivia felt a flicker of annoyance. You've known me for all of an hour. That's quite an assumption. You're right, I'm sorry, he said, looking genuinely contrite. Occupational hazard of being a single parent, I guess. You get used to reading people quickly. The mention of his single parenthood hung in the air between them. Olivia found herself wondering about Maddie's mother but knew better than to ask. How long have you lived here? She asked instead. All my life, except for college and grad school. Came back when Maddie was 2. His eyes drifted to his daughter, who was now carefully arranging her shells on a flat rock. This town has a way of either driving people away or pulling them back. Not much middle ground. And you're firmly in the pulled back category? I am now, he said simply. Wasn't always the case. Before she could ask what he meant, Maddie came running back, her hands cupped around something. Look what I found. It's alive. In her palms was a tiny hermit crab, its borrowed shell glistening with seawater. Olivia leaned in, charmed by the creature's cautious emergence. He's looking for a bigger home, Ethan explained, gently touching the shell with his fingertip. See how he's almost too big for this one? He'll keep trying on shells until he finds the perfect fit. Like Goldilocks, Maddie giggled. Exactly like Goldilocks, Ethan agreed. But we should put him back where you found him so he can continue his search. As they watched Maddie carefully return the crab to its tide pool, Ethan said quietly, some of us spend our whole lives like that little guy, always thinking the next shell will be just right. Olivia felt a strange tightness in her chest, as if he had somehow read her thoughts. And some of us are content with whatever shell we find first, she countered. Touché, he laughed. Though I'd argue it's less about the shell and more about recognizing when you found the right one. The conversation was veering into territory that felt uncomfortably personal. Olivia checked her watch, surprised to see that nearly 2 hours had passed. I should probably get going. I have a meeting at 10. Of course, Ethan said. Thanks for joining our expedition. You've been officially inducted into the Riley Shell Seekers Club. It's very exclusive, Maddie added solemnly. You're our first member who isn't related to us. I'm honored, Olivia said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. Thank you for letting me join. As she gathered her things, Maddie tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered something. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Maddie wants to know if you'd like to come back tomorrow. We're here most mornings, weather permitting. Olivia opened her mouth to politely decline, to explain that this morning had been an anomaly in her carefully structured routine. Instead, she heard herself say, I'd like that. The smile that lit up Maddie's face was worth the momentary lapse in judgment. And if Ethan's smile affected her in a different way, well, that was something she could examine later. As she walked back up the beach toward the parking lot, Olivia felt oddly lighter. The familiar weight of restlessness that had been building over the past week seemed temporarily lifted. It was just a morning on the beach, she told herself. A pleasant diversion, nothing more. But as she started her car and headed toward the office, she found herself looking forward to tomorrow's tide, and what treasures it might bring. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the beach earlier than usual, telling herself it was because the forecast predicted rain later in the day. She spotted Ethan and Maddie already at their usual spot, the little girl jumping waves while her father set up what looked like a portable easel. "You came back," Maddie exclaimed when she saw Olivia approaching. Her delight was so genuine that Olivia couldn't help but smile. "I promised, didn't I?" she said, handing the child a small paper bag. "I brought something for your collection." Inside was a delicate sand dollar Olivia had found years ago on a business trip to Florida. It had sat on her bookshelf through 3 apartment moves, a small reminder of a rare moment of peace in her otherwise hectic life. Maddie's eyes widened as she carefully lifted it from the bag. "It's perfect. Dad, look." Ethan examined the sand dollar with appropriate reverence. "That's museum quality," he said, giving Olivia a warm look. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," she replied simply. "It deserves to be part of a proper collection instead of gathering dust on my shelf." They fell into an easy rhythm that morning. Ethan was working on illustrations for his field guide, sketching the local seabirds with remarkable skill. Maddie alternated between shell hunting and pestering her father with questions about his drawings. Olivia found herself drawn into their world, offering opinions on Ethan's sketches and helping Maddie identify her finds. "You're good with her," Ethan commented during a moment when Maddie was occupied with building a small sand castle near the water's edge. "She makes it easy," Olivia said. "She's a remarkable kid." "She is," he agreed, his pride evident. "Though I can't take all the credit. She came into this world with that spark." "How long have you been on your own with her?" The question slipped out before Olivia could stop herself. "I'm sorry, that's personal." "You don't have to answer." Ethan set down his pencil, watching his daughter as she carefully decorated her castle with shells. "Almost 5 years now. Her mother decided that small-town life and motherhood weren't for her. She's in New York now, I think. Fashion photography. We get a birthday card every year." The matter-of-fact way he delivered this information made Olivia's heart ache. "That must have been difficult." "It was," he acknowledged. "Still is, sometimes. But we've found our rhythm." He turned to look at her directly. "What about you? What brings someone with your obvious talents to our little coastal hideaway?" Olivia hesitated, unused to talking about herself in any meaningful way. Her practiced response about career advancement and strategic moves suddenly seemed hollow. "I needed a change," she said finally. "My last position in Seattle was intense. 80-hour weeks, constant travel. When the opportunity here came up, it seemed like a good way to catch my breath." "And has it been? A good way to catch your breath?" She considered the question. "In some ways. The pace is certainly different. But I'm not very good at slowing down, I think. Hence the restlessness," Ethan observed. "You're very perceptive for someone who spends his days with 7-year-olds and seagulls," she said, only half joking. He laughed. "Occupational hazard number 2. You learn to read between the lines." His expression grew more serious. "For what it's worth, I think you might be selling this place short. There's more here than meets the eye." "Is that your subtle way of suggesting I should stick around longer than my usual 6 months? Is that your usual time frame?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Caught, Olivia felt her cheeks warm. "More or less. I get antsy." "Antsy," he repeated thoughtfully. Interesting word choice. Before she could respond, Maddie came running up, her hands cupped around another discovery. The moment passed, but Ethan's words lingered in Olivia's mind throughout the rest of the morning. As the days turned into weeks, these beach mornings became a fixture in Olivia's life. She found herself rearranging meetings and shifting her work schedule to preserve this time. The Riley Shell Seekers Club, as Maddie insisted on calling it, expanded its activities to include tide pool exploration, amateur bird watching, and on one memorable occasion, tracking a pod of dolphins that came unusually close to shore. Olivia learned that Ethan had once been headed for a prestigious research position at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, but had returned to his hometown when Maddie's mother left. He now balanced teaching with raising his daughter and working on various environmental conservation projects along the coast. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked him one morning as they watched Maddie carefully documenting her shell collection in a notebook Olivia had given her. "Coming back here instead of pursuing your research?" Ethan considered the question. "I used to," he admitted. "For the first year or so, I was angry about everything I'd given up. But then one day, I was teaching Maddie how to identify different types of seaweed, and she was so excited about it, so present in that moment of discovery, and I realized I wasn't missing out on anything. I was exactly where I needed to be." His words stayed with Olivia long after that day, echoing in her mind during late nights at the office when she found herself scrolling through job listings in bigger cities. For the first time in her adult life, the prospect of moving on didn't fill her with anticipation. Instead, she felt an unfamiliar reluctance, a pulling back. It wasn't just Ethan and Maddie, though they were certainly part of it. It was the way the small coastal community had begun to feel less like a temporary stop and more like somewhere she could belong. The barista who knew her order before she spoke it. The bookstore owner who set aside new marketing books he thought might interest her. The elderly couple who waved to her on her morning runs. 6 months came and went. Olivia remained. "You're still here," Ethan said one evening as they walked along the beach. Maddie was at a friend's birthday sleepover, and they had decided to meet for dinner at a small seafood restaurant overlooking the harbor. "Astute observation, Professor Riley," Olivia teased. "I've only seen you 3 times this week." "No, I mean," he gestured vaguely, "you're still here. In town. It's been 7 months now?" 8, actually, she corrected, surprised herself by the realization. "I guess I lost track of time." "That's a good sign," he said, smiling. "Losing track of time means you're either miserable or content. And you don't look miserable to me." The setting sun cast a golden glow across his features, highlighting the laugh lines around his eyes that Olivia had come to find so endearing. Over these months, their friendship had deepened into something neither of them had put a name to yet. There had been moments, a lingering touch, a look held too long, conversations that stretched into the night, but both seemed cautious about crossing that line.